Thanks a lot, Grady, and it's a great pleasure to be here presenting at the 20th anniversary. So the disclaimer is available to view on the company's website. I won't go through it here. Chalice Mining, I'm sure you're all aware of who we are, a globally recognised name in minerals exploration since we made the Julimar discovery 3 years ago. A team with a track record of finding mines such as Flying Fox, Spotted Quoll, which were found by Kevin Frost, who's in this room today, and Tropicana, and a track record for rewarding shareholders. We have a high-performance, results-driven culture that is values-driven, and our aspiration is to create a world-class, multi-district green metals province in the West Yilgarn province. We've achieved around a 5,000% total return to shareholders who are invested with us before the discovery. So hopefully there are a few of you in the room today. Now, this shareholder return story is extremely rare, but it is not a surprise given the calibre of mine finders at Chalice. One such mine finder that was crucial in our success, and the founder of Chalice is Tim Goyder, who is also in this room. We are lucky to still have Tim on our register as our major shareholder. We also have a host of other long-only, highly credible funds on our register, such as BlackRock, and these funds recently helped Chalice raise $70 million in an institutional placement just last week. Importantly, we're also offering existing retail shareholders the right to participate in the raise through a share purchase plan, which commences this Friday. The placement in SPP strengthens our balance sheet as we head into the strategic partnering process, which I'll talk about shortly, and allows us to keep our foot on the gas with our exploration drilling and study completion. So, what is the Julimar project? The major new polymetallic critical minerals project in Western Australia. It is one of the most significant discoveries in Australia in the last 20 years, and it is the first and the biggest major PGE discovery in Australia. We recently upgraded our resource by 50%. So we now have 560 million tonnes at an average grade of 0.54% nickel equivalent, or a 1.7 grams a tonne palladium equivalent. So this equates in ground to 16 million ounces of palladium, platinum and gold, 860,000 tonnes of nickel, 520,000 tonnes of copper and 83,000 tonnes of cobalt. Importantly, we also have a higher grade component, which has also increased in size in our recent resource upgrade to 120 million tonnes at a 0.9% nickel equivalent. So this makes this a very strategic large-scale resource, and it has, importantly, all of the green metals that are essential for decarbonisation technologies like batteries, electric vehicles and hydrogen. The project's 100% owned by Chalice, and it's located just outside of Perth in one of the world's most attractive mining jurisdictions. It has direct access to major highway, rail, power, plant infrastructure, as well as a large local workforce. And importantly, this resource occupies just 2 kilometres of the newly recognised 30-kilometre long Julimar complex. Our strategy going forward is to explore and develop in parallel. And we've recently just commenced a formal strategic partnering process with the purpose of considering multiple transactions to optimise value at the project, including bringing in technical operational expertise and potential offtake at Julimar. So as you can see here, this is a map of the global palladium and nickel primary supply market share. What is clear is that the world is extremely reliant on Russia and South Africa for palladium supply, accounting for over 80% of the market. So after waging war on Ukraine, Russia's supply is now at risk. And sadly, the social unrest in South Africa has escalated to such a degree that mines go without power in South Africa for a large portion of the day. Given both situations are only likely to get worse before they get better, we are likely to see very significant supply risks. We are also seeing a bifurcation of supply chains where OECD countries are paying a premium for metals such as nickel and copper from countries such as Australia, who are allied to the US, and have a stable jurisdiction and strong ESG credentials compared to countries such as Russia or Indonesia. For this reason, Julimar is capturing attention as a strategic asset for Australia and the Western world. The metals that Julimar has are used across almost every emerging technology related to decarbonisation. The current use is very strong, but the future use will be many, many times over more impactful. Nickel and copper and cobalt are critical metals for electric vehicle batteries, as well as energy storage and renewable energy and infrastructure. Platinum and palladium continue to be used in abundance for catalytic converters in internal combustible engines, but will also be critical going forwards for their uses in hybrid vehicles and hydrogen fuel cells. So you're looking here at a block model of our resource. Importantly, this is a resource that just keeps growing as we put more holes into it. An additional 260 drill holes has expanded the resource by 50%. So it's now, as I said before, in contained terms, 16 million ounces of palladium, platinum and gold, 860,000 tonnes of nickel, 520,000 tonnes of copper and 83,000 tonnes of cobalt, which equates to, on an equivalent basis, 3 million tonnes of nickel equivalent or 30 million ounces of palladium equivalent. That makes it the second largest undeveloped nickel sulfide resource in Australia, and is also the largest undeveloped nickel sulfide resource in Australia that is not owned by a major after BHP took out Oz Minerals and the West Musgrave project. We're looking also now at a block model where the yellow section on the right represents the resource and the purple part is the Gonneville intrusion. So what's important to note here is that the resource represents only a third of the intrusion, which is interpreted to extend 1.6 kilometres down dip to the west beyond the resource. Recent seismic interpretation has also indicated that the intrusion remains open to the south, which was previously interpreted to be cut off by late-time granite. We'll be putting some deeper holes to test an extension to the south, which, if proven, could be potentially another game changer for Chalice mining. Gonneville represents just 2 kilometres of the 30-kilometre long strike length of the Julimar complex. Several large sections of the Julimar complex remain untested, and recent deeper drilling there indicates a thickening of the complex at depth around 5 kilometres north of Gonneville at the Hooley prospect, just around here, where we've seen some very encouraging grades at depth. So planning is underway for additional exploration drilling at Hooley, also to the south here, towards Hartog, and then also to the north at the Bordon, Jans and Torres targets up here. So we have years of drilling ahead of us in the complex, but initial results give us great confidence that we are vectoring towards multiple Gonneville-like discoveries in the region. So zooming back to the other part of our strategy, which is developing the Gonneville deposit. We've been developing the flow sheet, and we're in the fortunate position that the majority of the PGMs float with the copper in a simple flotation process, which leads to a very valuable copper concentrate that will be snapped up by copper smelters around the world. This underpins the value of the project. Given there are fewer nickel smelters to process the PGMs, we are planning to develop a mixed hydroxide precipitate, which is effectively a partially refined nickel cobalt product that can be sold directly to battery manufacturers. We are also looking at potential leaching processes for our tails to extract even more of the highly valuable PGMs that we weren't able to float. This is effectively the cherry on top and will have a significant impact on the value of the project. So Chalice going forward is focused on a dynamic multi-track strategy which includes completing the scoping and PFS studies for the Gonneville project, progressing regulatory approvals, running a strategic partnering process and continuing high impact drilling in the complex and also across the West Yilgarn. All of these work streams mean that we'll continue to have lots of positive news flow with various re-rating catalysts. Chalice is doing industry-leading work at a level that hasn't been seen in WA at the Julimar region. Our exploration is very low impact. We're working closely with traditional owners and environmental specialists to protect the values of the region. For example, we employed over 60 traditional owners last year to help us with our exploration work in the Julimar complex. We've also had very early and successful engagement with the local community. We've recently opened an office in Tujay and have been very involved in participating and funding grassroots community events and programs. The Julimar discovery has kick-started the new West Yilgarn Nickel Copper PGE province, which could deliver many more major critical minerals discoveries. Many of the giant orthomagmatic nickel copper PGE sulfide deposits, such as Norilsk and Jinchuan, are located proximal to the margin of cratons. The Eastern Yilgarn craton, as you can see over here, hosts several world-class nickel sulfide deposits. Over 25 million tonnes of nickel has been discovered there since 1965. When Chalice made the first discovery on the West Yilgarn craton margin, we were able to stake and had first mover advantage to stake up to 8,000 square kilometres. And we are confident that this gives us the best ability to make further Gonneville-like discoveries. We've identified 6 newly ready greenfield targets that we plan to commence drilling later this year. We are in the midst of a commodity super cycle due to the global decarbonisation efforts. The world has never needed more metal than ever before, and yet we have a declining number of these metals thanks to a paucity of major discoveries. Julimar is a rare and strategic discovery in one of the world's most stable mining jurisdictions, which will become a very important and strategic source of supply for Australia for decades to come. So, in closing, we have a world-class Tier 1 scale green metals project in Western Australia, has a unique exposure to critical minerals required for decarbonisation. We have a team with a track record of discovery and shareholder value creation, and we have significant exploration upside at Julimar and in the exciting new West Yilgarn Nickel Copper PGE province. Thank you very much.